Today I'm speaking with conductor Donald Peterson. For 35 years, Don served on the faculty of Brigham Young University until his retirement in 2021. Don and I have a lot in common. We're both conductors of wind band, and we are both on the journey with Parkinson's disease. Don is an incredible musician and a wonderful human being, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. How are you, my friend? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I hope it's worth it.
And just to spend time with you is worth it for sure. Out of curiosity, when did you get your diagnosis?
2019. I mean, it took a little while to get it all worked out, but it was about 2019, 2020.
So what were some of the first signs that there was something going on?
Well, as I look back, my office was right next to a staircase, uh, and I used to run up those stairs, and a few times I'd end up not making it. Just my right foot didn't come up far enough, and I thought, boy, I'm getting lazy. Um, and so I didn't think much of it. And then I guess when it really hit me that something was going wrong is when I was trying to turn over in bed one night, and I kind of got stuck. It's like, what do you mean I can't roll over? And I just felt stuck. And then as I was reaching, I had pretty strong tremors. And I thought, this is really weird. And, and during that same time, I was having these, I called them ice pick headaches. It would be just hit me out of nowhere and be like somebody jabbing right above my eye. And so that was enough to alarm my wife. Say we need to get checking on this. So we found a neurologist. Um, he looked at me and checked a few things. And he said, "Well, it's just non-essential tremors. Just let's just keep watching it." And And then he says, we'll just stay in touch. And he said, if you really wanted to find out if it's Parkinson's, we'd have to do this expensive test. Finally, I got to the point where it's like, well, I'd like to know. And it's kind of a CT
Yeah.
scan or whatever. And I got it approved to have the test, and then I didn't get any call from him or anything. And so we were wondering what's going on. Finally, I called up, and the nurse said, "Oh yeah," he said, "it looks like you probably have Parkinson's," and he's called in a prescription. And I thought, well, we don't even talk about it. Yeah, no, and so we started researching and trying to find a different doctor. And luckily, we found one in Salt Lake that was excellent in Salt Lake City. And she took an hour and 15 minutes the first time. What's interesting is she said you really didn't need to have that test. If you do this thing that I'm doing to you don't need to go through all that expense. But she checked everything. I mean, I walked, all these things and these things and so forth. And so now I see her or her nurse practitioner 4 times a year, and she's been very good. Um, I was worried that she might move, but yeah, she's here, and I love going to see her. Plus, we also communicate if I'm having some issues with medications, then she says just well, not text me, but go online and write to me, and I'll respond. So that works
So did
well.
you, because you retired in 2021, correct?
Yes.
So did you, in that last couple of years, um, have any difficulty conducting or interacting with music because of some symptoms?
Yeah. A couple of things that one is that this is about the same time as COVID hit.
Uh, that's right.
What was complicated by that. And the other, even more complicating factors is I have back issues, uh, spinal stenosis, which is basically the arthritis in your spinal column, and it clamps down. And so I've had two fusions. I had one in 92 and one in 2021. Uh, and the reason that complicates things is because uh, I can't do as much exercise as they'd like you to do, and it causes lots of pain. So, things went slow at first, although, yeah, I mean, it was quite slow. Right now, I'm going through kind of a rough spot, but I just had another surgical. They just clipped some nerves in my back a couple of weeks ago, and so I've been recovering from that. Um, so, as my pain doctor says, he said, we haven't quite crossed the frontier of Parkinson's and spinal pain. So treating those at the same time is tough.
Uncharted territory.
Uncharted territory, yes.
Yeah. What Parkinson's medicine are you taking?
I take carbidopa, levodopa 3 times a day,
Oh, three times.
3 times, and then I take extended one at night.
Okay. Are
And
you
then
uh, are you on a set hours or it's just midday, beginning, midday, and night? How do you distribute that out?
that's interesting. I've I've read that, it doesn't work unless you're eating at the same time. My first my first instructions were to take it 20 minutes before a meal. And then
Yeah,
this doctor said, that's too hard. Just take it when you eat.
yeah.
So I just take it, I really have pretty much with my meals 3 times a day.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Well, I've heard that you're supposed to keep it away from protein, but I'm no expert either. Um, but I take mine. I the extended release for me works really well in combination with a regular pill. So I take it during the day at 10, 2, and 6, and then when I go to bed. Mornings are hard. I think that in my next appointment we're going to discuss maybe a something different in the morning because mornings for me are the most difficult. Um, but
Yeah,
I take
likewise.
a regular pill, and I extend it at the same time,
Wow.
which really works well. Kind of makes it last a little bit longer and keeps it in the system. Because I don't know about you, but it makes me quite dizzy when I take it, particularly that first dose in the morning. I get very dizzy.
Hmm. I can't tell a lot when I take it, and she always asks me, how soon after you take it do you feel results? And I can't answer that question, but I do know that
Mm.
if I miss one or two, I'm in trouble. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So, and the other thing I take is amantadine, uh, one or one or two a day. But mine, if I look at the chart and they say, when did you feel the results? I can't tell you that, but I can tell
interesting.
you if I miss it.
Yeah, yeah. That's I can relate to that as well. So, how over now these last 5 years, how have things progressed? Have they progressed steadily, or um, how are you doing compared to, for example, when you retired?
Um, well, the progression has been actually pretty slow. Um, and sometimes, I'd finish the exam and she'd say, "Do you want me to add this up?" And she'd say, "You actually scored better this time than you did 6 months ago," which, you want to stand up and cheer. Um, right now, like I say, I'm struggling a little bit more because of this back thing, and
Yeah,
because of that, while the wounds healed, the surgical site healed, they didn't want me moving around a lot, and so that cuts down on the exercise, and because of that, you feel worse. So in general, it's gone slow. Um, although the fatigue has gotten worse rapidly the last few months. Um, the other interesting thing is that you wonder how all these things are related to each other, but I started having some voice fatigue about 8 years ago. Well, it started with my trumpet playing, and I would get like tension and spasms in my throat playing trumpet, and I eventually had to just give it up because I could play for a little while and then I'd get real tension there. And the same thing with singing. My
Hmm.
voice would get tired during rehearsals and later in the day. That's when I have my biggest problem with my voice. But but it has gotten to the point that I can't sing through a verse, a hymn at church all the way without having to kind of clear my throat and try to relax it. And so I don't know how those things are connected, um, but I think they are to a certain extent.
So you started feeling that before you identified the tremor and the other issues of walking upstairs.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, isn't that interesting? That's been my experience as well. In retrospect, I look back at things and could not have connected the dots at the time. But but
Yeah.
but you can look back and you can really start connecting dots of things that seemed unrelated that most certainly are all part of the journey for sure.
Yeah.
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 So are you now since you retired, I know you're doing some judging and some clinicking still. Are you doing some conducting still?
Uh, a little bit. I've had to turn down some honor band things because I don't have the stamina. I'd love to be conducting, but I don't know how I would do. Um, you know, this all came on about the same time as COVID, like I said. And the initial problems were bad enough that I thought, well, I'm not going to say anything to the students. And then I thought, I need to say something. So I said, look, there are times I'm going to change hands when I'm conducting. There are times I may not move a lot. And this was the one that they got a kick out of. I said, my face doesn't always express what I'm feeling. So if I look at you like you sound bad, it doesn't mean you do.
Mm.
And besides that, I'm not conducting a vibrato during the fermatas. You just have to understand these things. And they were really good about it.
I can relate to your issue with your right foot. Because it's on my. Are you right-handed?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I'm right-handed too, and for me, uh, I have real issues with bradykinesia. I kind of really, really like this hand. This hand just doesn't move very fast. This has been no problem.
mhm.
This just doesn't move very fast. So I was noticing conducting before anything else. But you have a tremor in the right hand, but you're able to move quickly, conducting wise. You're able to keep tempos and things like that.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to explain this, but after watching your video, the one you just did on baton, and then talking to you at the ABA convention, and you tell me the size of the handle, I wanted to show you this. Yeah, so there's a typical handle for me.
Right.
And as I would grip it, as these come together here, get up on the screen, it would be right there.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I found as it got tighter, in fact, the same way it affects my handwriting, as it got tighter, it got worse. So I made this one. Now I have a left hand trimmer. Anyway, and so I don't quite hold it as tight, and that loosening may be similar to what you talked about, what you do. That loosening of the grip has also freed up my wrist a
Oh,
bit.
Wow. As I'm following through and so many conversations with people and um, exploring really this connection, this special connection that we have as conductors and musicians, and this Parkinson's journey, it resonates with me that there are two aspects of our relationship as musicians and as Parkinson's patients. Number one is how is Parkinson's affecting us as musicians, like my ability, my tempo issues and whatnot. But there's also this other aspect of how does music making impact my Parkinson's symptoms, and and for me, um, the more that I like, the further into rehearsals we get or into music making, the more my symptoms tend to start disappearing or lowering. Uh, I call it, this relationship to this kind of aesthetic experience, that feeling, that wonderful feeling
Right.
we have of connection. Have you had any experience with that at all?
Yes.
Really?
Uh, Now I've been back to conduct. Well, I went back for, I guess, the last concerts in our concert hall, and then the new concert hall. I went and conducted in the new concert hall. And I mean, it's not like I spent a lot of time rehearsing, but as I get into it, it's like you're kind of floating. It's like, yeah, this works, and it's like I've been there before. I want to stay. uh, but then if I start thinking about it too much, it goes off the track. But yeah, I have felt that, and and it's interesting. That sometimes I'll be listening to music and I'll look down and I'll have kind of a tremor, and if I start to move to it, you know, I guess I had to do it in the camera. But if I start to move to it, it's pretty smooth. But I'll be sitting there listening to music and holding the music like this. But if I try moving, it settles down a lot.
Wow.
I have no idea why, except you're kind of turning yourself over to something that's bigger than you, you know.
Yeah. We were doing, last November, we were doing Maslanka 4, and I, we were in rehearsal, at the end, the last bit of the last movement. And it was just such an incredible experience. All the musicians moving together, really. And I realized that I was flowing completely without any of my stiffness. And I stopped in the middle of rehearsal because I wanted witnesses. And I said, I was showing them, look, like at that moment, I was felt like it was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
And I've had similar, not to that extent. That was a really acute wow moment. But I have, now that I pay attention, I have certainly realized the connection that I don't know whether it's the connection with the music, the art, or whether it's the connection with the human beings, that we get to collaborate as conductors with wonderful groups of human beings. I don't know what it is, um, but it's been a very powerful experience for me.
now just out of curiosity, do you think that elevated experience happened because that's such a passionate and emotional piece?
I think yes. Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, this is interesting that we're having this conversation at this moment, because I more and more, as I am doing my own sort of searching on the internet, I wouldn't say research, but searching on the
Yeah,
internet for stuff. Um, uh, I've found a lot of information. People that music therapy, the effect on a music listener, the effect of music on a Parkinson's patient as a music listener,
yeah,
right? But what I've experienced powerful is as a music maker, as someone
right.
involved in the creation of this, not just the sound of music, but the conveyance of something bigger of the music, has that has really been um, the most powerful effect that I've experienced on
Right.
my symptoms. And I don't know what you call it. I call it an aesthetic experience. I have no idea. I'm not an expert in this area at all. I have no idea whether I'm properly naming that. But that feeling that we've all had as conductors at certain moments, certainly not all the time, but that moment when everything is just everybody is connected in one, and the music is an elevated has an elevated intent that we're all connected with. Wow. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kind of like the stars align. Yeah.
Yeah.
Years ago, well, when I was working on my doctorate, I wrote a paper on the hedgehog theory and um, how you get to a point where the aesthetic experience takes place, and we don't measure it by, how many goosebumps you have, but we know what it is, and we know how it feels, and it lines up when it's not too difficult and it's not too easy, and you just kind of float through that experience. And that's why I was curious if it's that piece, because it's pretty easy to immerse yourself in that and and pulls you along and pulls them along. They
Yeah.
can be pretty clueless to not be pulled along through that piece.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's interesting. So you've done some work in this area. I didn't never realize that.
well, yeah, I mean, I took an aesthetics class and we had to write uh, 6 papers on different things. And my DMA is in music education and conducting at Arizona State. But yeah,
Right.
so I studied those things, and that made sense to me because there were so many people that were saying, well, we've got to make sure that the students have an aesthetic experience. It doesn't matter what the music's like, they need it. It's like the whole, these things all have to line up. I mean, the reason I got into this is because it's fine arts, not just because we're playing instruments.
Yeah.
It's what touches you. And and so that was kind of a tangible way of recognizing when that occurs. And I think to a lesser degree, the same kind of thing. I feel movement because I've done it a lot with music. I mean, the piece that I conducted the last, I guess, was a Mysterium.
Ah,
And even though that draws out, slowly, and you would think that would cause lots of problems, but as as you get immersed in it, it's like, yeah, I'm on board, and my
wow.
hand's starting to move. Okay.
That's amazing. That's amazing. For me, the beginning, I have to like warm myself up, just in terms of tempos. Like if I were just to go cold, it's really hard for me to maintain a tempo, even with my new baton, and maintain a tempo faster than about 152 for very much time. Um, and so like I'm learning this kind of rhythm of my symptoms, and I'm rethinking like how I start concerts.
Yeah.
So many of first pieces are really fast, and get me halfway through the concert, and I think I'm good to go at 160 plus, but at the beginning, not so much, not so much at
Yeah.
all.
That's
How are you doing away from music making? Like, what are some of the issues you face in just your kind of daily life?
I I'm doing pretty well. Going cold turkey from music has been tough. The COVID and the relationship with students, and we were supposed to go on a tour right then.
Hmm.
Um, all those things happening at once, that was hard. For me, it kind of coincided the diagnosis with my retirement. So in some ways it's been easier, but as I look back, I almost wish that it would have happened a few years. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, a few years sooner, but
Yeah.
so I could have coped with it more.
All
My
right.
my first thought after other than this is going to mess up me and me making music. My first thought was, I don't want my grandkids to remember me as the old shaky man, you know. Biggest help to me has been my wife. When I was diagnosed, I was in tears, you know, when it finally hit me. This is not going to get better. It's just going to be a journey. I mean, we're 51 years in August, you know.
Amazing. That is wonderful.
And she said to me as uh, during that time, she just pulled me in and just kind of shook me and just said, "Look, we're going to get through this together."
How do you deal with the inconsistencies? You know what I'm talking about? It's
Yeah,
the more conversations I have with people, the more I realize that there's common themes and there are common experiences. And one of the common experiences, which seems to be most difficult to explain to our loved ones who don't have Parkinson's, is this absolute roller coaster of on and off feeling.
I was trying to come up with a metaphor. One is a dartboard, you know, I hit today. This is how it is. But let me shoot the next dart, and it won't be the same. Or Wheel of Fortune.
Ugh.
Today today this that's hard, and I think it's hard for the people around you. We were on a cross country airplane and got talking. My wife was in the middle, and I was on the aisle, and then the one next to the window was a doctor, pretty young doctor, but come to find out she's a movement disorder specialist.
Wow.
So we started talking about Parkinson's, and my wife said, "Yeah, it affects the emotions too, doesn't it?" And she lit up like a Christmas tree. She said, "Emotions, heavens, yes. They're just completely disrupted." And and for me, that's been one of the toughest things. I mean, I've always been a little soft-hearted, but there are very few movies that I can watch without bawling. Sometimes TV commercials, I'll have to pull out the tissues. It's like, come on, Don, you can do better than this. But the emotions are just, you know, and even if somebody says something to me that's, positive, my kids will say, "We love you, Dad," I'll be in tears. I used to be able to just look at them and say, "Are you sure?" You know, or some smart aleck thing, but it's just very difficult, the emotional part. And the anxiety thing is tough too. I mean, I guess I've always had a little bit of anxiety, but it's off the charts sometimes. If my wife's driving, like I said, she's a therapist. I'm the worst backseat driver I've ever been, but she's understanding. And so the other day we were driving, she said, "That early lane change was for you. That's a love gift." She said, "I would have never changed lanes that soon to get on the freeway, but I knew you were stressing about it, so I did it for you." Those emotional things, the anxiety things are tough. Yeah, and other things don't matter as much. Have you lost smell? Do you know?
No, I have not.
Yeah, I've read that a lot of people do. Like 80% is what I read once, but I lost that quite a while ago.
Let me ask you, this has again been my culminating question, and I'd love to know what your response is. If you were to have the opportunity to meet someone who just received their diagnosis and was concerned and feeling overwhelmed, what might you say to them?
Oh, probably three or four things. First one would be, this is not a life-ending diagnosis, it's a life-changing diagnosis. And it requires patience uh, on your part and those around you. But if you start feeling down, just look around, and there's some great examples of how people deal with it. Michael J. Fox is a prime example, you know, how he's turned it into a positive thing. And And if I start thinking, well, I'm getting worse in the Parkinson's, I just have to turn on a video and look at him and say, Don, you haven't been through anything. And there are other people too. The second thing I'd say, find and build a support group. My family is that for me, especially my wife. But I think the more things, like you say, as you get online and you look at all the information. I mean, there's lots of bad things that come from the internet, but there's so many good things that we can glean and reach into the experience of others. Even just a few podcasts that you've done, I've found have been uh, encouraging and calming to me, and I see that getting stronger and stronger. And I think, boy, 2 or 3 years down the road, somebody's going to look at Tom and say, "Wow, you really gave me something that I helped me get through this." Then another one is just to have faith that you can make it and have faith, period. Watch for ways that you're being blessed. It's real easy to look at it and say, woe is me. But I had an experience. Hope you don't mind me telling you this one, but in April I was adjudicating in San Francisco, and I'd been in the hall, and it was pretty cold. And so I was driving to the airport and I had to stop and get gas. So my circulation wasn't great and my Parkinson's wasn't great. So I'm trying to get and it's a different car than I've ever driven because it's a rental car, trying to get the gas cap off. So I couldn't quite finish it. So I set my wallet on top of the car to finish. And then I got to the rental car return. But, well, I made it. Reached back and realized I didn't have my wallet. I was panic stricken. I thought, oh man. And so I uh, the Hertz guy took my bags and he said, here's Uber. And I said, so I got over there, but I was shaking so badly, I couldn't plug in the numbers, or even to find the Uber app. And there's a guy who got out of his car and said, I'm here to help you. And I said, I can't even plug in the app. He said, I just turned mine off. I'm here to help you. And I said, but I don't even have my app on. He said, I just turned it off. I'm going to help you. And I told him I'd lost my wallet. He said, hop in. Finally, I did. He drove me back to the place. We couldn't find it. He ran up and down the street and we couldn't find it. Then he said, I'm going to help you get through this. And I said, man, I don't know. Because like I said, I was shaking quite a bit. And it turned out he was Iraqi. His brother had helped American soldiers. And anyway, so he said, if I have to drive you to Utah, I'll get you there. I said, oh, this is ridiculous. Anyway, he dropped me off, and I didn't have ID. I didn't have any money, and I didn't have my airline ticket. And so as I was going through that panic, trying to figure out how I was going to make it work, he comes running up. He'd been, I guess, to an ATM or something. He came running up and he said, if you need to get a hotel tonight because you can't get on an airplane, I will take you to Utah. I said, no, that's crazy. And he gave me five $100 bills. He said, this will take care of you, and I want to hear from you. And, I'd been so stressed, and here I was blessed with this amazing person to give me five $100 bills. And I thought, you know, life is good and somebody's watching out for me. So anyway, watch for ways that you're being blessed. And the last one, um, how you deal with this challenge. I wrote this down. How you deal with this challenge can encourage and bless the lives of others. And somebody told me the other day, they said, I've watched you and watched you go through this, and you're an inspiration to us. And not that I always wanted to be an inspiration to everybody, but it means a lot to think that you're helping someone the way that you've been helped. It's a journey, but with people like you, we can make it. And I've really appreciated the podcast. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Don. It's just wonderful to spend this time with you, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your inspiration, and I know it's going to really impact a lot of people. All the best.
All right. Same to you.